Okay, let's get this thing kicked off. So thank you everyone for joining us. I'm really looking forward to this session today. We've got two great speakers. We have Scott Glenn from the Home Depot, and we have Craig Greenberg from Gatekeeper Systems. And Home Depot has been working for a while with Gatekeeper Systems on this really unique solution that's really bringing just great results. And we've got some awesome video to show you that's going to kind of show you how this works a little bit, but then we're going to have a session with Craig and Scott. And then at the end, we're going to open it up for Q&A. So please use your chat, I'm sorry, not the chat, the Q&A to submit your questions. And we'll get to those. We have plenty of time at the end of the webinar to get to every question. If we can't get to every question, we will certainly take your questions and then send them out later. But with that, what I'd like to do is turn it over to Gatekeeper, who's going to sort of control this first video that we're going to show.
Scott, how are you? Thank you for joining us today. Really appreciate it.
Yeah, appreciate you having us.
Yeah, looking forward to the discussion. Why don't we get started? You know, maybe you could just talk briefly about Home Depot and your current AP strategy and the areas of focus for your team.
Yeah, I appreciate that. Look, I would start off with saying that I don't know that we're terribly different from most of the other big retailers out there. But you know, the way we kind of position certain things maybe a little bit different, or the way we prioritize certain things maybe a little bit different. But you know, let me just kind of walk through it. You know, for the most part, our first strategic priority is to be very passionate about the way we protect our customers and our associates as they shop with us, right? So that used to be very much four-wall centric. Inside the store, how do we make sure that we keep people safe? But more and more, that's becoming outside the walls. It's becoming more environmental, you know, the surrounding areas, the parking lots, the surrounding marketplace around your store. So that's certainly, you know, our first challenge and our first priority is to continue to try to keep those customers and associates safe every day. Next, I would talk about what we call hardening the environment, right? So how do we just make it more difficult for bad actors to take advantage within our environments? And obviously that's becoming more difficult and more relevant than it's been in the past, because, you know, it's not just protecting a product inside the store. It's not just protecting the perimeter of the building. It's protecting that larger environment. At Home Depot, we have, you know, day laborers, we have transients, we have homeless opportunities all around some of our stores. And that more and more is falling on us to make sure that our associates and customers are protected, but also the brand is protected, and making sure that people feel comfortable coming into our environment. So that would be number two. And then what I would say, last but not least, you know, we are proponents of the total retail loss, you know, method. We are obviously charged with dealing with shrink and mitigating shrink in our stores, but also broader profit erosion and margin erosion opportunities. You know, everything from, you know, revenue, protecting margins, protecting profitability. All the different lines of the P&L increasingly are becoming part of our priorities, and certainly something that we're taking on pretty zealously. So that's it in a nutshell.
Excellent. Yeah, safety has really become, you know, it's interesting as we got started, Gatekeeper got started in, you know, this solution, you know, gosh, back in 07. it was really about protecting the merchandise. And as you just articulated, more and more of our retail partners, you being primary, it's really about safety of associates and customers, and we want to protect the product, right? It's really become, yeah, it's important, and we want to stop the repeat offenders and the people costing us the most money collectively. However, the safety's become paramount.
That's right.
If you could you talk a little bit about how the, kind of solution fits in to your what's become a non-confrontational approach as we look at safety? Obviously, that's key, is avoiding that initial confrontation that can escalate so quickly, right?
Yeah, yeah, no. So look, what I love about the solution, and this is something that we have really leaned into and doubled down on over the last couple of years, is going after things that are dual purpose technologies, as I like to call them. And it's one of the things that helps us sell investment to our leadership team. And so there's a few of them out there, but certainly, Purchek is one of the more tested. It obviously helps on the theft and fraud side, right? It does its job. It's been very effective for us. But it's also been really, really good about taking our associates out of the equation.
Yep.
We have really passionate associates. We have associates that are 25, 30, 35 years that are working in our stores, and they take things personally sometimes. And it's hard to kind of make sure that, we keep them from engaging. And we worry about that, and we train on that, and we do a lot of it. But the solution actually helps us take them out of that, take them out of harm's way. And so, rollouts have been a problem in our environment for a long, long time. We have a lot of different holes in our building. Some of our stores have 6, 7, 8 different egress, ingress points, depending on the configuration. And so, this kind of just covers that for us. It takes a piece of it out of play. And again, it's provided real value in terms of the shrink components of it, but it's also just taken a lot of our associates out of the equation and out of harm's way. And so they're not having to engage with these bad actors like they used to.
Yeah, that's great to hear. That's always been something that we've been focused on, is, with the solution, is that, call it, behavior-based aspect of what the cart does, not necessarily the person, taking that human lens out of, the decision, right? So we avoid bad decisions, if we will, because, as you talked about, right, employees are passionate and they don't want to see, this is their livelihood. They don't want to see that rolling out the door. They don't want to see theft. But giving them a mechanism that stops the merchandise, that draws pause, has been really, I think, powerful for some. One of the things that I didn't appreciate is, as we were visiting stores, one of the comments that was made was how happy people were at the solution, because they actually felt empowered. They were becoming, pretty upset about just watching stuff go out every day and with the hands-off policy. But now they have a tool, right, that helps keep the merchandise, but also keep them out of harm's way. And I think it's gone a good bit for morale for some of the stores that had higher loss problems, if you will. When you're looking at these things, there's so many factors that you have to consider, obviously, when you're looking at a solution. From, obviously its effectiveness, its scalability, and, a lot of different factors. But, clearly you're the one that has to walk into the boardroom and ask for money. What are some of the things that you look at? What are some of the key factors that influence your decision, to deploy an approach like this?
Yeah, no, it's a great question. What I would say is, I've been here for almost 6 years now, and I break that into the pre-COVID and the post-COVID years. That's really
Good
the
point.
way. And so, pre-COVID, relatively new, big organization, different kind of than what I've been used to in the home improvement field versus discount and department stores in my prior life. And so for us, it was a lot about just learning what we've done and learning what we haven't done in the past. And so, as we're kind of whiteboarding the things that we do, we always start with, what are we trying to do here? What is the outcome? And what could we do that could be disruptive or different, or, something that the grizzled Home Depot customer hasn't seen before. And so as we're kind of listing out solutions and matching them to outcomes, this was one of the ones that we said, look, it's been very, effective in other, verticals of the business. Could it work in our space? And we were at a point where we were literally open to trying anything to go after and bend the curve down on our shrink trajectory. And so, pre-COVID, we were throwing a lot of things out there, and we said, this is something we want to try. And, the one thing, that Home Depot is relatively known for is, POCing things to death, being very methodical and very ROIC focused. And so, all of those factors came into it, but I think one of the biggest ones that ultimately, got us out there is it's just new. It's something that we hadn't really done before, and it's something that we were trying to say, in our arsenal of things that we're trying to put together, could it have a place? And it does, and it ultimately did. So that's kind of how we went about looking at it.
Excellent. Yeah. It was interesting and quite frankly, almost a little bit intimidating for us, as you highlighted, right? We've had great success in some of the other verticals, if you will, in retail. And as we, started talking to you and looked at a larger POC and your stores, as you highlighted earlier, right? The number of entry exit points and fire exit doors and just all of the variations of how people could actually escape with product. And then, the diversity, if you will, of your checkouts, from self-check to service counters to pro counters for your contractors and things like that. It was when we looked at it, it was a bit intimidating, quite frankly. And, we felt really strong over the years about, our ease of implementation and being able to, get a solution in, whether it be a retrofit or a new store or remodel, equip the carts, equip the variations in point of sale types, and obviously the key being to keep it automated, and that the system just acts based on behavior, and there isn't really a manual employee step that's needed to either authorize or not authorize a cart. It was just based on whatever the red shopper or green shopper did from a behavior standpoint. And we, quite frankly, we had some concerns, right? As we looked at Home Depot, and it was a great opportunity, which we're so grateful to be partnered with you. But you have a unique shopping environment, and I have to tell you, the first time I stood at 7 o'clock in the morning in one of your front ends and saw the influx of contractors and what I could only call the chaos of that front end versus a normal, call it supermarket environment with the cattle chute checkouts or a self-check, it was like, wow, this is going to be a challenge. But I think we were able to collectively to understand, what does this look like, do the POC, as you're aware, and come up with something that worked for, your caught thieves, eliminated confrontation, gave a seamless shopping experience to your good shoppers, if you will, your green shoppers, and also really helped out the associates from a confrontation standpoint. So, I think training, once we got going, was a really, really key part of that with your people, making sure that, we had a scalable training model, and that everybody understood how to work with the system in terms of their daily flow on the front end and at all the various points of sale, to deliver that shopping experience that Home Depot's become known for, but still stop the bad actors. And I think that's an ongoing process, quite frankly, right? There's, going to be training that's ongoing with this, but I think we overall collectively work together. Your folks put together training materials with my team, and I think it was a really good process for us collectively, and it's been very effective.
Agreed.
Yep. Excellent. So as we kind of look forward now, we have a pretty good sized program now. I mean, what was the expected impact and outcomes, and what's your read so far based on what we've done? What are you seeing and feeling?
Yeah. So look, mentioned it a little bit earlier. We're a very financially well measured organization when it comes to how we invest our money, and the fact that we're investing, frankly, millions of dollars into this system speaks highly of what we think the results are doing for us. And so obviously we wouldn't continue to do that if we're not seeing both elements, right? The safety of our associates and customers being affected, but also the profitability side being effective. And just kind of like I'll just give you a kind of a story about, how we measure more of the softer things, and maybe even gets into a little bit of the associate adoption and management of it. But I remember, and I know you've seen this video, but early in our rollout process in our POC stores, our district AP manager was very close to it, managing the implementation, making sure that we could work out all the bugs. And I just remember that I got a video showed up in my email one day from him, and it was just a store, a prolific ORC rollout booster kind of individual. And I'm looking at it and I watch the system, work the way it's supposed to be working. And I'm like, okay, cool. That's really cool. And they're like, no, watch till the end. And so we had one video of the cart, being stopped and the person abandoning the cart and leaving. And he was clearly kind of like, flummoxed a little bit. He's like, what's happening? Something's new is happening here. This is not, what I'm used to being able to do. But the cooler part of that was when they cut to another camera and it's the associates who are kind of laughing and high-fiving one another and saying, holy crap, this thing really works. And this is definitely going to be something there. But I look at it and I go, wow, that's actually a different behavior than what our associates used to do, which was often put themselves in front of that cart and trying to physically stop that cart from leaving the building, which led to some of those confrontations and people having to do things that they didn't normally have to do. And I just thought it was very symptomatic of kind of like what we were looking for and the results we were trying to get to. And obviously that just happens day in, day out now in our stores, and we certainly will continue to look at that and continuing to figure out. And we're working with you guys, as hand in hand, to say it works really, really well on our shopping carts. We also have different carts for bulk purchases and
right.
Lumber and for different things. And we'll continue to try to figure out how do we get better and how do we continue to evolve the system. And you guys have been great in helping us do that. But we're very pleased with the system. We're very pleased with what it's been returning from us or for us. And like anything, it's just part of the compression. It's the menu of options that we apply to our shrink and safety equation in our stores.
Yeah, no, I agree. I'll tell you the videos and Gatekeeper right now, we see roughly about 40,000 events a day coming into the team globally. And I will tell you, I've been doing this for 20 years now. Never gets old when you see merchandise from whatever retailer stopped, nobody hurt, bad guy or gal walks away, store team pulls the cart back in, everybody goes back to work, and we avoided a loss, we avoided somebody getting hurt, we avoided any type of incident or issue. That just that's one of the things I just hasn't gotten old in all these years, and I love seeing that, because I think it's really what we need at this moment in time is stop the theft, but let's take that human lens and the confrontation out of it, because we never want to lose somebody over a bottle of Tide or power tools, for God's sake. It's just not worthwhile.
That's right.
So, as we look at, and I appreciate all your feedback on our solution and our partnership and our ongoing collaboration, as you said, to continue to evolve the solution and look at how it fits in your stores and some of the various modes of checkout and some of your perimeter departments is all, great steps moving forward. But, in general, as you look at ORC, you're very active, both, with governmental and in the media at times. I think you've been a real advocate for getting the problem out there and letting people know, hey, we're taking action, and we also need support from our government and legislators and all the supporting bodies in our organization. In your mind, what can the industry do? What can we all do to further impact ORC and make a larger impact in this ongoing problem that we collectively face?
Yeah, no, great question. What I would say is we've been on a roller coaster ride in retail, certainly over my career. There were times earlier in my career when theft and fraud was more impactful to, the shrink equation and the profitability of the stores. There were times we didn't really think a whole lot about, the life safety equation. And then there were times when theft and fraud was really not the major, component. We were, in a place of operational dysfunction in the industry. There's a lot of disruption going on. Online was coming on there, so the complexity of e-commerce and brick and mortar and delivery and all the different options that come along with it. But I think the last 5 years, the COVID years, have kind of brought us full circle back a little bit to where ORC is clearly something that needs to be reckoned with. I think that there's a perfect storm of decriminalization that's happened out there under resourcing of police officers that have emboldened the bad guys and girls that are just willing to do things that maybe they haven't done in the past. I always tell our leadership that there was a day back when I started in this business, when I would apprehend a shoplifter in stores, there was shame to it. There's no shame anymore. There's nobody really that really cares about it. They're willing to hurt people in order to achieve whatever they want to do. And so I say all that to say we've got to educate the governments out there. We've got to do a better job in continuing to help them understand how big this problem is. And what their obligation is within this space. And so, that's the path that we've started to take. I've been, blessed by having a leadership team that gets the message, that has been vocal about the message, that has supported us to go out and be aggressive in talking to state, local, state, and federal leadership, and really kind of push the message on we need to change the way we're operating as it relates. And I don't think for the most part, I don't think most of our leadership in the government and out there really just looks at it and says, oh, it's not a big deal anymore. I think they've been educated, but that education took some time. And I think people are starting to understand the broader impact of how it affects the community, how it affects the ability for us to provide jobs, how it affects the ability for, people to be served in their communities. And if nothing else, how it affects their ability to raise taxes and do the things that they need to do when businesses can't afford to stay, in business. And so I think there's been progress in education. I don't think we're done. My ask would be for all of the retail to continue to engage their GR and PR partners internally within their companies. There's some companies that are really, really good at it and are side by side with us when we talk to legislators and law enforcement. There's other companies that can probably do more and have a bigger voice that could be heard. And the more we magnify and amplify that message, the more we're going to get traction as an industry. So that'd be my kind of ask for the broader community.
Yeah, no, all really good points. I mean, from my perspective as a solution provider, I came out of retail operations, and similar to you, when I was in retail operations, if there was an engagement or, if you will, a catch, which was what we used to do with shoplifters, there was a stigma involved with that. To your point, a shame involved with that just doesn't seem to exist today. And I think that with some of the things that you talked about and decriminalization or higher thresholds, if you will, in conjunction with all these e-fencing options that people have utilized to sell merchandise versus having to go into some seedy back room someplace and physically sell a piece of merchandise for money or whatever they were trading the merchandise for, has really changed things. But I agree with you that we are making good progress, and we just need to keep our foot on the gas, engaging government, engaging any partners we can, working collectively together, and I value this part of our industry. I think in the loss prevention space, yes, I'm a solution provider, you're a retailer, but I think the partnerships that we have collectively versus just transactional for a particular solution like Purchek or whatever it may be has really changed to where we're innovating and out in the forefront of how we collectively impact this problem. And I certainly see that continuing, and also these relationships getting stronger and deeper as we all look to harden the target and make sure that we're maximizing sales, minimizing loss, but most importantly, keeping everybody safe, right? I think that's in the end what we all are charged to do with our collective jobs. So
couldn't agree more.
Good stuff. Any closing comments from you as we look to wrap this up? Again, I really, really appreciate your time in talking about this today. You've been such a fantastic partner and are such an advocate in the industry for all things reducing loss and increasing safety. I just really appreciate your time.
No, look, I would just close with, again, I appreciate the opportunity to talk to the broader group. Certainly, if anybody has any questions about how we've gone about the implementation process, how we've gone about the return on investment calculation process, be certainly open and willing to talk to any of my peers and partners out there, and help out wherever we can. So appreciate the time.
You bet. Hey, Scott, thank you very much. I'll echo that. Any further questions or want to talk a little bit deeper about how Gatekeeper and Purchek solution can help you out in your particular retail vertical or group of stores, we're always happy to engage. Easy to find, and again, we value being an industry partner with all our retail partners. So thanks again, Scott. At this point, I'll turn it back over to you.
Well, that was a great high five at the end of that video. I hope everybody caught that. That was pretty exciting stuff. Great snippets. I love watching the bad guys with their frowny faces when their tricks don't work, which is fantastic. So we do have some questions that have come in for you guys. I hope you're ready to be in the hot seat now. For starters, and maybe I'll kick this over to Craig first. It looks like magic, right? Like how does this system work? Can you kind of, without revealing the secret sauce, maybe tell us a little bit about the ways that it works?
Sure. Yeah. Thank you, Stephanie. We equip the shopping carts and/or other rolling stock that's appropriate. Obviously, in the Home Depot environment, there's flat carts and other types of rolling stock with Gatekeeper equipment, and we install it, if you will, a network of sensors at the checkouts and the doorways. And it's all invisible to the good shopper, if you will, the green shopper. And if the behavior of an individual comes in the store, utilizes a card or flat card or whatever it may be, and departs without getting what you call a permission from a point of sale, an active point of sale, it would disable at the doorway and set off an alarm, trigger a video, and so on, and essentially what you just saw in the video, right? It automatically disables it. And the nice part is it's independent of who's pushing it or what's in it. So, in a Home Depot environment, it could be, a box of screws, or it could be thousands of dollars worth of tools. It's really irrelevant. It's about the behavior, not the person or the merchandise. So, actually relatively simple, but also very effective.
So I know many years ago, back when I was an LP, we had a solution that would lock, but it was kind of easily defeated. Have you guys kind of done a workaround with that to where that this thing is, can't be tied up or can't be, it's still pushed out?
Yeah, I think for the most part, I mean, it's, like I said, it's all automated. All the, braking mechanisms and things like that are all internal to the solution. So it's not something that can be defeated with, like tying it up or doing something like that. The only way really is if they, we get them down to something that's on their person versus using a cart, which I look at, and I'd be interested in Scott's thought. I kind of look at that as a win if they got one thing instead of 20. Obviously, but from a defeat standpoint, no, it's pretty hard to defeat.
Excellent.
Yeah, I mean, I would just layer in on that. Like, I mean, part of our strategy was if we can get these folks to trade down a cart full of merchandise versus grabbing one and running away, we'd consider that a win. And so not only have we seen that, but we do see just generally abandonment is probably 90+% of the time. They're not even grabbing one item and walking out the door with it.
Right. And so I don't know if you can talk about it, Scott, but what is the protocol at the Home Depot? Would you then investigate that drop? Like, let's say their cart is locked and they can't get out with it. Do you pull video? How do you handle that?
Yeah, so I think I mentioned, a little bit earlier that, this is a piece of the compression strategy that we use. Obviously, smart analytics, smart video systems. We are using LPR and other, I'll call it technology-enabled cameras that are out there. And so really what happens in these incidents is they are pulled back. They are kind of looked at for commonalities. Is this somebody we've seen before? Is this somebody we've seen? Can we follow the person out to the vehicle? Can we use our license plate recognition systems to then tie them to other broader crimes that are out there? And so, yeah, our teams behind the scenes will continue to pull the string on these incidents so that they just don't become a continual test. They become something that we can build up and then actually take to prosecution down the road.
Right, because as you know, the bad guys, if they continue to do this as a test and there's no action, then they'll probably find a way to make it work eventually.
They don't have a lot of quit in them.
No, they don't. Yeah, it's called job security for us, I guess.
Right.
So another question that came in is, how does this affect the customer experience? Can you talk about that, Scott?
Yeah, what I would say, and kudos to Craig and Paul and the team, we don't get a lot of false alarms. Again, without getting a whole lot into the secret sauce and behind the scenes technology that goes into it, it does have to communicate with legitimate point of sale. There has to be transactional, tie to it. And so, for the most part, we're not really experiencing customer interactions. Every once in a while, sure. Do we have, faux pas? But what I would tell you is specifically with this, but even broader than this, the customers have become really, really resilient to understanding what retailers are doing these days. They get it. They know what's happening in their communities. They know what's happening with crime. They understand. We do some non-technological things at the Home Depot with lockup. And while everybody thought there would be a, customer rebellion about that, I talk to customers all the time. They say, I get it. I know why you're doing it. Just don't make me wait too long, right? I'd rather you have the product. I'd rather it be on the shelf. I'd rather be available. If I wait for a couple of minutes, that's one thing. If you make me wait too long, yeah, I'm going to get a little bit frustrated. That same attitude translates into, oh yeah, I get it. The cart locked up. I'm help me fix it and get me on my way. That's the mentality we see most of the time.
Yeah, I think the customers they're relieved that we're doing something, right? I think that
that's right.
They're happy about it for sure.
I would add to that, great job with the Home Depot people. But every now and then there's a behavior that is kind of unplanned. Somebody leaves, comes back in. You could think of some various things. But when it occurs, to Scott's point, people understand there are measures in place and everybody's doing it to help manage loss, manage pricing, and ensure in stock. But if an associate responds in a friendly manner, apologizes, gets them on their way quickly, we have tens of thousands of these systems. We get very, very little pushback on that when it's handled properly at the point of engagement. I think that's a really important part, is to, keeping the customers happy with whatever solution. I don't think that's specific to Gatekeeper, by the way. As Scott said, hey, we don't mind you lock stuff up, just don't keep me waiting too long. So when it's handled well by the store teams, typically it's a non-issue and it works well.
Yeah, and I would go on and say we've had the system in place for years, and in more than half or close to half the chain at this point. I literally can think of one escalation that's been sent to our senior leadership that ultimately made it my way to answer for some kind of false alarm, if you want to think about it that way. Pretty good track record.
Yeah, I think as with any program, it's all about the pre-work, right? And that training that goes into it to set it up for success. Sure. Scott, can you talk a little bit about how long did it take before your store employees had adopted this? Do you feel like it was like right out of the gate, like they were instantly, or was there a little learning curve there?
Yeah, very fast. And again, I think it's a little bit just because of the circumstance we've been in for a while. This is a pretty common method of theft historically at the Home Depot because of what I mentioned, the multiple ingress egress points. We've got garden centers, we've got pro areas, we've got tool rental centers, we got front entry, we got front exit, we've got lumber door exits. And so, as we said, the criminals figure out a way, and they've been exploiting the ways of getting product out of the store for a long, long time. And this was just an easy one for them. I mean, we can't put people, we can't put guards, we can't put, humans necessarily at all of those points of egress 108 hours a week. And so they just, they were constantly testing us. And so as the associates saw us doing something, they were just all in. They were just, they could see it from day one, stop things from happening that they always watched occur and were powerless to address. And so that's the point where, you only need one win for them to start saying, holy crap, something's really different here, and we're going to continue to embrace it. So, every once in a while you get some frustration, because they do have to, actually, when the carts lock up, they have to go out, they have to unlock the cart, they have to move the product, put it back on the shelf. I mean, but geez, that's better than the alternative in our eyes.
And it seems, again, without not getting into the secret sauce, but it seems to me like there's not a lot of employee involvement before the lockup, right? Like they're not having to do something extra at the POS, right?
Nope.
Yeah.
Not a thing.
No, it's completely automated. And, in the end, I think the ideal outcome really is, we disable whatever type of card it is, and, an associate responds and the perpetrator walks away. And that is absolutely ideal, with no steps being required by the store associates to permiss or not permiss a cart.
Awesome. So Scott, I know, typically when we have a new solution, we're going to do a POC and things like that. Can you maybe give some tips to our audience about how you then sold it to senior leadership? Did you bring them out and have them watch an example, or do a show and tell in the store, or was it in the boardroom? How did it go?
Yeah, no, we did, right? So again, typical POC, start in a couple of stores, expand to a couple of markets. I would just the way we do POC things may or may not be different from others, but just I'll speak to it. We don't rack and stack stores and go after, hey, this store's got the most rollouts, let's go after that. We go after markets. We don't want transference. We don't want to stop problems in one store and create problems in another store that didn't have them previously. So generally our go-to-market strategy is to go attack a market, measure, literally every particular metric that there is out there for us to measure, whether it's sales, whether it's shrink, whether it's on-hand adjustments, whether it's customer satisfaction, you name it, we're measuring all that piece of it. But yeah, we did some bold things. We actually took our leadership team, including a couple members of our board, on a store walk. And it was kind of one of those, I held my breath a little bit, but because you always want to make sure that technology works. But we had one of our board members push a loaded cart through the front door. And obviously the system worked perfectly and the technology worked perfectly. And it just kind of reinforced the metrics that we were seeing, that the experience was also there, right? So, people always worry about, like, does the cart lock up so abruptly that, somebody could get hurt? Is there, what if a kid's in the cart? And the way the system works is it slow rolls, right? It just slow rolls to a stop, and it works that way. And so there's an experiential side of it. We talked to the associates. We got the qualitative point of view from the associates and kind of what they were seeing. And we didn't measure a whole lot in the pre piece of it, like how many rollouts did you get a day. We didn't track that. But again, anecdotally and qualitatively, the associates are telling us that they're just not even trying as much as they used to. So the effect has been to just, that behavior has moved out of our environment more and more than it ever did.
That's awesome. And is there something about the technology that helps you track it now? Like, are you able to track the attempts and the lockups?
We do. I don't know if Craig wants to talk about the technology side of it or the data side of it, but we do.
Awesome.
Yeah, sure. We do video, whether it's customers video, gatekeeper video. When a card activation happens, it triggers an alert, and that can trigger video. And we also have log files, and it helps the retailer understand exactly what's going on, not only from a loss standpoint, but a response standpoint, as we talked about, right? A fast and friendly response at the door usually is what gets the perpetrator to walk away. But in the event it's it's something else, fast and friendly response keeps everybody good. So yeah, we have a lot of ways to track it. And, you asked earlier and Scott mentioned, one of the things we're really focusing on now with our partners is trying to measure the before, if you will, right? From if you will, a surveillance or monitor mode is what did the problem look like before? And then what does it look like once the system is activated? And, Scott said, what we typically see is, they scatter pretty quickly. They go elsewhere, and it isn't even that you see a great diminishment. It's like they don't even try anymore. We have what we call the Purchek curve, where people, we see 80, 90% sometimes within the first 2 weeks. It's really, really impactful. But we do have a number of ways to measure it, both from a file standpoint and best option, obviously, is video because you have evidence and also understand the associate response and so on. So very important.
So we have an interesting question here from John Sullivan, and thanks for putting this up, John. And leave it to LP people to think of something like this, right? But have you had anybody trying to roll in with a lookalike Home Depot cart and trying to get around this system? I kind of thought about this too, but
it's you just put another fear in my
I know,
head,
right?
John. I hadn't thought about that one, but honestly, I haven't heard of it. It is interesting because one of the things we deal with, like I happen to be dealing with recently, is just people coming in with the fake aprons on and certainly doing TikTok videos and all that BS that happens out there. But no, I hadn't heard of that. But I wouldn't put it past anybody. Sure, it's certainly there. I think, in all seriousness, though, I think what probably is happening is either they are trying to, like, again, we have the pro component of our business, and there's a lot of situations with collusion with our associates and customers at times. I think probably we're seeing a little bit move into that arena. But also people are just, more grabbing a couple of things in their arms and running out of the store versus the typical rollout that we've seen in the past. So, right. But I'll put that on the agenda for the meeting on Monday to have a discussion about, because that's an interesting point of view. Yeah.
Yeah. New fear unlocked. Sorry about that.
Yep.
Yep. Someone's just giving you kudos for having the executives go out, which is great. And I hope everyone at least approaches that when they have a new solution to sell. I think seeing is always believing, for sure.
Sure.
Okay. Well, I think that is all the questions that we've got. You guys both did a great job. Scott, I know you're a super busy guy, so we appreciate you taking the time to come on and answer the questions live for us. Craig, really nice job to you, and really interesting solution. And we appreciate everything you're doing out there. But again, thank you both. Hope you guys have a fantastic weekend. And if anyone, let me see if I can share my final screen here. If anybody would like to reach out to, hopefully you guys can see it, little technical issue.
Once again, Stephanie, thank you very much. Thank you very much to the magazine. And Scott, as always, thanks for your time. Look forward to talking to you soon. And thanks for everybody that made the time out of their busy schedules to join today. Really appreciate it.
No, I appreciate everybody who's on, and happy Father's Day to all the dads out there.
Happy Father's Day.
Happy Father's Day.